Hello and welcome to the second in our series of the Incubeta Ignite's 2021 Digital Prediction Series. I'm delighted to welcome and introduce today John Cawdrey, who joined Incubeta in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic after spending 12 years with Google. John, absolutely delighted to have you with us to share your digital predictions for 2021. How was it to start with, joining a business both through the interview process and joining the business itself in the role of US CEO, as a leader of our organization in the US, entirely virtually? And how do you think that will reflect upon the year ahead?
Thank you, Luke, and it's great to be a part of the Digital Prediction Series. So after 12 years at Google, I joined Incubeta. The entire process was virtual, as was laid out in the cards for 2020. But the benefit of working at Google for so long is a lot of the work that we had done was through virtual teams, and we made heavy use of Google's technology in terms of video conferencing. So there's a fair amount of background that I'd already had in terms of working virtually. But really, there's nothing like the personal connection. And I think that's one thing that we'll hope to revive in 2021, the importance of the human connection and the personal connection. So whether that is virtually or whether that's face-to-face, it's definitely something that will need to be a keen effort to focus on. And to focus on getting the best out of for this year. And one thing that it does cast light on is really, what does an office look like in 2021 and beyond? You know, what are we expecting that place to function as? Because I think the days of it being a 9 till 5 gathering of people has probably changed remarkably. Yeah,
indeed. Now, as you look forward into the 2020, of course, that kind of the digital aspect, the virtual working aspect, the changes that we've seen over the last 12 months also present some really interesting opportunities for us as a business and as a service business. We're people centric. What opportunities do you see from a talent perspective going ahead in 21?
Well, the exciting thing that this has shown light on is the fact that people can work virtually. So business can be built across the length and breadth of the United States, and you dip into varying talents, and you don't necessarily have the same cost implication of having that talent based in the most expensive cities in the world. So I think that's one thing to dip in and out of, is to vary the talent, to be more diverse in the way that you're looking at that talent, and to really pick the best and the brightest and the ones that are going to innovate and drive the business forward in the future.
Right, so you've got a broader pool of talent that you can reach into. And when we look in terms to clients and how we deliver that service, how do you see that aspect changing in 2021 and going forward? Are clients more accepting of a virtual experience now, and do you think it will continue, and does that create opportunities for us and for businesses in our sector?
Yeah, so the client aspect is obviously first and foremost in our minds. I think that clients are more accepting of it, of the need to be virtual. I think what 2020 showed us is this generational shift into digital. And I've seen studies saying that this has propelled the world of digital forward 10 years. It's clearly had a dramatic effect on businesses, and one that I don't think anyone's going to take a backward step from. I think that it's up to us to make sure that we're innovating in the space, and we're providing the solutions to this new economy in a way that's very supportive of our clients.
So let's stay on the client aspect whilst we're there, and talk about client budgets, which of course I know we're all deeply immersed in as we transition into a new year, and everybody's looking at budgets for the year ahead. What are your predictions for client advertising budgets in the digital marketing landscape for 21?
Yeah, obviously the real concern here is that the economy is hurting. Everyone to some degree or other has had difficult times through the last year. What we did see is we saw a drop in budgets at some point, and then a revival of budgets.
Yeah.
And what I don't think we'll see is budgets declining through 2021. I think that this is a moment in time where businesses will choose to invest in this new area of the economy, and that we'll see the budgets begin to increase again. We've worked with a number of clients that are already talking about how they'd like to grow their businesses dramatically to fit this new need. And one of those new needs, and a trend I think we'll get onto, is the need to really engage the customer in a way that is specific to the environment that engagement appears in. So really owning the moments that matter for the clients.
Interesting, and let's definitely come back to that shortly. I'm curious to know what your views are on, so let's call it the more traditional media formats, seeing how well digital has done and how well digital and how resilient it was in the prior year. Do you think that will accelerate their move towards digital buying formats, whether that's CTV or digital out of home?
That's an interesting one. We obviously believe as a business that those new formats will be of increasing importance next year. I think what we'll see is that the pie is growing as businesses choose to invest more in this new area. I do think that there's still a place for more traditional forms of media, although I do think that the measurability is going to be more of a struggle. And really, I think that measurability is going to be a struggle across digital as well next year. Given
let's go a bit deeper on that one, definitely, and the subject of privacy and technology, and we know what Apple are doing there, and the conflict that's occurring between big tech. So maybe go a bit further on that one, particularly because I know a lot of people are interested in that topic.
Yeah, so I mean, the traditional ways of measuring media, both digital and otherwise, are coming under more scrutiny. The implications of having that measurement is beginning to be felt in more real terms, with people finding their privacy settings not quite where they should be, or they find that they're not willing to accept the burden of retargeting, for example. So what we'll see that those norms will be challenged. They'll be challenged by the changes in technology and by additional legislation. And therefore, it's up to companies to understand those changes and to innovate accordingly. And the products that will really shine in 2021 are the ones that can be innovative in the new world and are not relying on the previous ways of doing things.
Yeah. Now, no matter where the viewers are based, they won't have escaped the fact that there was an election in the United States at the end of last year. And you touched upon legislation there, which will clearly change this year with the new Democratic Party leading the United States, and potentially with changes in the 2 seats that are up for grabs in Georgia as we speak. Speak more to that if you could actually. What do you predict based on the Democratic leadership in the government? What do you think will change, and how will that affect the business in the 4 years ahead, let alone the 1 year ahead?
Yeah, so it's really the prediction comes down to a couple of Senate seats in Georgia, which is an incredibly important election. So obviously there was the presidential election, and the Senate following that had 98 out of 100 seats allocated, with 2 going to a special runoff election that is happening yesterday, and the results are coming in today. So, on the face of it, it looks like the Democrats have won one of the seats. They would need to win both of the seats to have 50-50 split in the Senate. And the reason why that's important is because really that allows the new government coming in to begin to pass legislation in the Senate that needs a majority to pass. And the tying vote, if you like, is the vice president. So in a 50-50 split, Kamala Harris would be that tying vote. So that would allow a new government to come in and pass legislation. And things that the Democratic Party have talked about in the past are a more stringent federal policy on privacy to cover the entire country, rather than the situation we have right now, which is a California-led privacy policy that's broadly adopted in some states. So you'll begin to see the state playing more of a part in that.
Interesting. And we've spoken about this separately, John. Do you think that will be a good thing to have a federal level legislation on that basis, or rather to have it being rolled out gradually state by state, or are you open to see what happens there?
I'm definitely open to seeing what happens. I think having a federal-led policy gives a lot of clarity to companies that find it confusing to understand what policy they need to follow. This has seemed to have worked quite well across Europe, where they've had one policy that governs the European Union. Then, in the US, it has been state-led, and I think it's difficult for a company to invest in the right way to follow rules that may well change across different states. I know another area that this is challenging on is certainly how companies react to the overall changes in policy on tech companies, and whether or not they'll be looked at with more scrutiny as well. And I can see from the markets today that a lot of the tech companies' stocks are somewhat down, indicating the market believes, that the 2 Senate seats will go to the Democrats, and also that they believe that those tech companies will be under slightly more scrutiny.
So let me poke on that one a little bit further, because of course Scott Galloway and others are famed for calling for the breakup of big tech, which is a bold claim. Do you think it will go as far as that, or do you think something else could happen?
Yeah, I mean, that's a $1 million question, really. I think that what the government coming in will try to do is try to look at what is best for the consumer. So that's why there'll be increased scrutiny, is that the scrutiny will come as to what benefits the consumer and what should they be looking for in the long run, and is competition fostered by having these large companies, or is it a monopoly situation?
Right, indeed. 2020 threw up a big surprise. Are there any surprises, not to encourage anything, but are there any surprises that you might predict for 2021 before we start to look at opportunities, which will be my next question for you?
Yeah, so I mean, the surprise, I guess, is right here in front of us with the Senate. If those 2 Democratic seats actually do go to the Democrats, then that is a surprise. That's a surprise for a traditionally Republican state to go Democratic, and throws up the entire government into a much more powerful position. So that would be the first surprise, and it happens very early in the year. But later in the year, I think that what we'll be looking at is hopefully regeneration and the back to human contact and back to some of these businesses that have been hit very hard over the last year. Yeah.
I mean, let's throw in a bit of optimism and say, okay, vaccination will take place, we'll unlock again, and we'll get back to openness in 2021. Which sectors do you think actually have real opportunity, and are you excited about in the light of what you call regeneration, or in the rebuilding phase as we go into it?
Yeah, I think it's very, very specific. What I would see is, if you take a sector like travel, the companies that will find it very difficult are the ones with the very high overheads. So if you're talking about airline companies or hotel chains, might find it very difficult still next year because of the gradual reopening. Whereas the whole sector will do well because people want to be traveling more. So the likes of Airbnb, for example, will be doing well. Companies like Expedia and Booking.com, those kinds of aggregator type companies that can give you a broad view of the sector will also, I see, do very well.
Very interesting. So before we wrap up, John, let me give you an open question and ask, is there anything else that you particularly predict to be ahead of us in 2021 and beyond?
Yeah, so we did touch on it earlier in terms of the technologies that I see really appearing as a challenger this year, and that's CTV advertising. I think that we'll see a resurgence of that, and one that we're very well positioned for ourselves. And I think that will be a very interesting area to watch as the technology improves, and we can begin to buy this stuff programmatically.
Yeah, well, I know because of the scale of the US that the rest of the world is looking to the US for innovations and to lead the way in CTV. So definitely keep watching that with a keen eye from all of our markets. Absolutely. Super. Thanks very much, John, for your thoughts there. And of course, they are written in our series as well. We're sharing the trends from across the Incubeta global leadership team in our Digital Predictions 2021 piece. So please do visit incubeta.com and look at those predictions as they are released to the website. Thank you very much for your time today. This was the second in our series of Incubeta Ignite's digital predictions for 2021, and there'll be plenty more to follow in the coming weeks. So please do stay tuned, and we'll put some links in the comments below if you're on YouTube, or in the content around this if you're on our website. But thank you very much, John. Really appreciate it. All the best to you and to the team for the year ahead. We hope it's a smooth and a successful one, and an enjoyable one for all of you, and of course a healthy one for everyone too. Thanks very much. Take care, everybody.